Welcome back to Three and Out. We're reunited again, all three of us here talking ball, and it's great to be back. A good weekend of football, some good storylines to be talked about, and a good upcoming slate for this upcoming weekend. So we're gonna get right into it, fellas. I'm glad to have everybody back. How we doing?
Doing great, man. Kind of starting to feel like fall a little bit.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And the football is acting accordingly. Some of
Mm-hmm.
these races are getting figured out, which is great. Because I don't know what the conferences would do if they had to go down to level F for the tiebreakers. But
Coin tosses.
yeah, honestly, I think some conferences are coin tosses, some conferences are drawing straws, and some of them are computer generated simulations. But
Jeez.
anyway, but no, it's been good weekend. Glad to be back. Life is good.
Yes, sir.
Glad to be back as well. Boss man sent me on a mission up in a different state, so glad to be back this week talking ball. My favorite thing. So
For sure, for sure. And we'll talk more about it later. But like you said, Drew, some conference conversations starting to get a little more concise. I know we've had our tinfoil hats on the past few weeks, had some conspiracy theories going. And honestly, content wise, I think a lot of these conferences going divisionless has been one of the best things to happen for us because then you get to sit here and talk these crazy doomsday scenarios. And obviously, it is very, very statistically unlikely that any of them will happen, but it's fun conversation and is never a thing if you have, SEC East and West. No, it's just the winner of the division, right? So, but I do like getting your best two teams out of each conference. However, we can talk more about that a little bit later. We're going to start off how we do every week with our dogs of the week. I feel like last week it was just me and Drew. We're talking about it, and not the best performances, at least when it came to statistically speaking. Some maybe off the paper, non-box score watching performances that were good. But I do think this week we're back to some eye-popping stat lines around college football. I'm going to elect to go last on this because I'm still trying to figure it out. There's a lot of good guys, but I know you two have it ready. So I'm going to throw it to whoever wants to start it, and we'll get going.
Yeah, I can go. The covering machine that is Kurt Signetti and the Fighting Hoosiers. This one's like statistical and also situational. Got to give a shout out to Curtis Work. I mean, he went 19 for 29 for 263 yards and 4 touchdowns. And that by itself, I think, would be warranted in a 47-10 rout of Michigan State after they spotted Michigan State 10 points to start the game.
Yeah.
And they also cashed my bet. So shout out to Indiana.
Double win, baby.
That's right. That's right. But situationally, this is also his first week back from, I believe, a hand injury. So, there were a couple question marks around Indiana's future with him out, but they were able to limp through, and he's obviously back and able to take care of business, which is very important considering who they have on the slate looking ahead in a couple of weeks, but we can get into that later.
Yeah.
I have a feeling we will get in that later, but I said it last week. Indiana, I think, is my favorite story of the year. I've seen some people talking. They don't like Signetti. I'm a huge fan of his kind of no nonsense, no bullshit approach.
Yeah.
I said last week he kind of reminds me of Dan Campbell.
Yeah.
And I mess with it. He's a football guy at his core, and he did what he did with exactly. So I mean, I love it, and he did what he did with JMU, and then hopped to Indiana, who hadn't had really much success since the Michael Penix days, and here they are taking the college football world by storm. So I really love to see it.
They were picked preseason to finish second to last in the Big Ten, and look at where we are. I mean, yeah, if you're not a fan of Kurt Signetti, you probably just lost to him. So
honestly, yeah, we got some salty Big Ten fans out there, but valid, I guess.
Definitely. And Curtis Rourke also, coming back 2 weeks after thumb surgery. That's impressive.
You
got to
and having that showing, yeah. And it's not like Michigan State's any slouch either.
Are they
No,
not? I haven't
they're
really been
flirting
keeping-
with 500.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, they're
They're
not
4 and
what,
5.
what I'm saying is they're not like a
Terrible.
1-win team.
Yeah, but
They're not
above
They're
like
trying.
average
State.
for bowl
Yeah.
eligibility.
Yeah,
Yeah, they're still trying to bounce back from Mel Tucker, but they're getting there.
they're getting there.
Yeah, I think as a Georgia fan, I've disowned him.
Yeah.
Who?
Bro's
A
kind
great
of a,
look.
Bro's kind
Who?
of a freak.
Yeah,
We'll leave it at that. You
we will leave it at that. You
viewers
Google
at
Mel
home.
Tucker, you'll yeah.
All
Go
right,
do
no,
your own
dog of the week.
research.
Yep.
Move on.
All right, yeah. My dog of the week, going down to the SEC. We got to go with an Ole Miss player, right? They lit up the scoreboard all day against Arkansas. They beat them, I believe it was 63-31, and a lot of it had to do with Jordan Watkins, the wide receiver. He went for 8 receptions, 254 yards, and 5 touchdowns. They were just bombing it to this man at any opportunity they had.
Insane.
So it's, I mean, every so often we get a gaudy stat line from a wide receiver, but like usually, I mean, I think it's been since the days of Devontae Smith since I've seen something like this. Like 8 for 254 and 5 touchdowns is just absolutely those are video game numbers.
Mm-hmm. That reminds me of that Randy Moss Thanksgiving stat line.
Yeah.
I have it pulled up at 3 catches, 163 yards, 3 touchdowns. So, I mean, he to do that on 8 receptions is just unheard of, really.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, and I think situationally too, like Ole Miss historically, at least the past like decade, has not had a lot of success up in Fayetteville. So
Oh, really?
Mhm.
then, for them to be able to
Arkansas isn't
go-
an easy win, anyways. I don't think, but yeah.
But yeah, I mean, going up there and taking care of business to keep your season alive.
Yeah.
Shout out to the Ole Miss offense.
Yeah, Ole Miss kind of riding high into the Georgia game this coming weekend. I'm sure we'll get into that as we kind of have some skin in the game this week for this one. So.
Yeah. We might have a few opinions about that, but
Maybe
you'll
so.
have to stick around to find out. But yeah, that's pretty insane from Ole Miss, and they're hitting their stride. And like Jackson Dart said earlier in the year, they gotta win out. So it should be a good one. But sticking with dogs of the week, I will give mine real quick. I'm gonna keep it in the SEC. Take it over to South Carolina, who just dashed the hopes and dreams of the Texas A&M faithful, blowing them out, beating them by 24 points. And we had some pretty impressive performances from a few different folks on the Gamecocks. However, I think I'm going to give it to Joshua Simon. Well, no, I'll probably give it to Raheem Sanders. We already have a wide receiver, but Joshua Simon had 4 receptions, 132 yards, and 2 touchdowns. So still an impressive stat line. Not maybe as impressive as what Ole Miss did, but a lot of good production out of him. And then Raheem Sanders, the premier back from South Carolina, continued to do what he did. Not really a Jinty-esque figure, but nobody is. 20 carries, 144 yards, 2 touchdowns, and just pretty much complete domination from South Carolina. I think they're one of the better 5-3 teams that I've ever seen. They are a few plays away from only having, I don't know what their worst loss is, but I don't think that there's a lot of losses that you could point to where they just got blown out. I think I'm looking at it now. The one true loss really would be Ole Miss, lost 27-3. But you kind of get hosed against LSU down the stretch with some questionable calls from the refs, and then you took Alabama to the final play. Yeah. So they're sneaky, and as a Georgia fan, I'm going to go ahead and say that I have no shame in admitting that I am glad that Georgia does not have to play South Carolina or Vanderbilt this year. So.
Correct.
Yeah.
And they face off against each other this week, which will be a really fun one.
That's going to be a lot of fun.
What's the spread?
Yes.
South Carolina 3.5 point favorite in Nashville.
South Carolina favorites?
Favorite on the road in Nashville. Yeah.
Vandy plus 3.5
Where-
might be my lock. I'll tell y'all right now. It might be.
Yeah, that I would not blame you one bit for that, because Vanderbilt taking down Alabama at home and damn near should have beat Texas at home.
Pavia is so good too. I love watching Pavia.
He's the heart. He's the heartbeat of that team. I love him.
I mean, he was banged up and he still was able. I mean, the thing is, I actually really enjoyed the way that they played against Auburn this week because they showed that they could win without Pavia having his best game.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm
Mhm.
pretty sure. I mean, he did not play well because I mean, in the Texas game, he had to come out for a couple of plays. I think it was a whole series where he had to go in the 10th, and he's nowhere near as mobile as he was earlier in the season. But they were still able to find a way to win. Uh, but yes, I'm also showing 3.5 on my preferred book, but I still like it.
Mhm.
It's interesting.
I like that line.
Yeah,
I do. But we can get more into that in the
good.
preview section of
Yeah.
this video. But I think that wraps it for dogs of the week. Let us know in the comments who your choice would be for dog of the week. You have the pick of the litter here. A lot of really good performances this week, so let us know what you think. Moving on, we can do some recap real quick before we hop into the rest of what we have to talk about. I don't know where y'all want to start. Obviously, we can talk about Georgia, Florida. We can talk about Ohio State, Penn State. Unfortunately, I need to go back and grind the tape on Ohio State, Penn State. I was in Jacksonville, didn't catch that much of it, but Drew and I had a conversation last week about potentially the loser of this game. I say in the thumbnail gets fired. Not the case, but seats getting warm. And I think with the outcome of Ohio State, Penn State, the conversation about James Franklin will continue to be had. And at the end of the day, I think it really just matters if Penn State is good with where they are, because I think they have such a high floor. It's just that
Yeah.
ceiling is not there yet.
Mhm.
So
My thing.
So,
Sorry, I just wanted to
no,
say.
please go.
Yeah.
Please go.
My thing, I think, with Penn State, and I draw comparisons to Georgia under Mark Richt because that was us for many, many years. Like, we were good enough to beat everybody else, just not good enough to knock off, the top dog powers that be in, your conference. I look at it like this. Can they guarantee that if they move on from James Franklin that they could get somebody at the same level or higher? And if the answer is no, like I think it is, then you kind of have to stand pat with James Franklin. I don't think you can afford to risk it and then hire like a Tom Herman or somebody like that who, has got a lot of hype coming out, but like ultimately will not work out.
Think they could take Signetti?
What?
So do you think they could take Signetti?
I mean, guy's a
could they
winner.
get him?
You
Is my
could.
question.
Guy is a
That's a
winner.
frisky hire. I like that.
I think very soon there's going to be the Signetti sweepstakes. To be honest with you, though, there's going to be some bidders for that man.
Yeah.
One of the hottest names in college football right now. Honestly, I think hiring Hugh Freeze was one of their biggest missteps in years. I think they've set themselves back multiple years in their program. To be honest with you,
Yeah.
and he's kind of a shit person too, so kind of a double loss.
Damn, they locked Signetti up until 2029.
Good for them, man. Yes.
That's nice for them. Well, in 2029, he's going to be the hottest name on the market.
Well, like the thing, his base salary is only $500,000 a year. So they locked
I'm
him
him,
up
I'm
for a
going in.
bargain.
I'm renegotiating.
Oh yeah.
Honestly, I don't know if he's the kind. He kind of plays himself off and is low key, but he deserves.
Well,
If he's going to do that,
he's
obviously
he's also guaranteed an additional $3.5 million in annual outside marketing and promotional income. So
okay. So then there you go.
it's just
So
the way they
you're all in
structured it.
all, yeah.
Yeah.
So they're not. His base salary is not
It's not an
all
accurate
that coming from the
representation.
university.
No.
Yeah,
He is a very.
That's
I'm
valid.
googling this. His base value of his contract is like 26 million. His buyout will be more expensive than that. So any team who wants him essentially has to pay that buyout.
Yeah, I could see some teams, in the NIL era, the collective era, you got your boosters.
If a quarterback is
go get a
10,
winner.
Yeah, if a quarterback is worth 10, how much is a head coach worth?
Exactly.
Yeah.
But
So
no, so I mean, look. So sadly, I watched every second of this Ohio State Penn State game.
all right, Drew, give me your analysis. I'm ready for it.
The sad thing is, I was right in my preview. I was 100% correct that it was going to be a classic Big Ten schlop fest. I
Mhm.
was just hoping that Penn State would have been on the other end of the schlop.
They never are,
They
unfortunately.
It's just it is so tough because I'm pretty sure they had 4 trips to the red zone and they were only able to score 6 points. One of
Right.
those trips to the red zone, they were inside the 2. They had 4 plays inside the 2-yard line and were unable to score.
Mhm.
Ugh.
Field
And I
goals don't
mean,
win football games.
no, they do not. No, they do not. Like Will Howard spotted Penn State a pick 6 to start the game,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
they still weren't able to piece it together. I mean, hey,
Mhm.
as a former offensive lineman, shout out to the Ohio State offensive line. They have been through the ringer as far as injuries go. They've got left guards playing left tackle. They've got backup right guards playing left guard. They've had to piecemeal that thing for the past couple of weeks. Even though I lost money and I kind of wanted Penn State to win that game just because I'm tired of Ohio State and Ryan Day fighting the mid allegations, it is fun to watch an offensive line take over a game and just
Yeah.
watch Will Howard hand the ball off like 8 straight times at the end of the fourth quarter, saying "fuck you, we're gonna win this game" on the backs of our big boys up front. Um, however, I don't think Franklin's in the hot seat, mostly just due to the situation. Like, yeah, he's disappointed, but like when you look at his overall record, like, yeah, he can't beat the 2 best teams in his conference on a consistent basis. But just looking at this season, all they have to do is just win out, and they don't care if they don't make the Big Ten championship game. If they just win out, at worst, they're what, the 7th seed? They get a home playoff game.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that is a big piece in it, is in the expanded playoff era. You can kind of hang your hat on, playoff appearances as a head coach if you're looking to,
Yeah.
stick around and be with the school. But I agree with what you said earlier. I think it's way too much of a gamble for them to, let him go and hit the market right now.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I'm honestly coming short on any name that would at least be a lateral move for Penn State at the current moment.
Yeah.
So I think that would be quite the gamble on their part. And I mean, hell, like you said, Drew, they went out. The remaining schedule is not hard at all. And I honestly, admittedly, forgot that going into this they were undefeated. I knew they were undefeated. I forgot they were ranked number 3. So I mean, that's worth a lot, and it's hard to win a national championship in college football. And when you're playing against national championship contenders in your conference consistently, it's tough. So.
Yep. And I mean, just looking ahead, like really ahead, next season their schedule gets much harder with Ohio State, Indiana, and Oregon all on the
Mm.
slate. I don't know if Indiana is going to be able to continue the success. Let's just assume they do. Um, I don't know. It'll be interesting, but I don't think he's anywhere near on the hot seat this season.
No, I think if Ryan Day would have lost that game, we would be having a very different conversation right now.
Yeah.
Yes, because they would be out of the driver's seat for the playoff. They would definitely be out of the driver's seat for the Big Ten championship game. So
Yeah, and I think that's one aspect of this game is that Ohio State had their backs up against the wall in a game at home. They needed to come they needed to win the game for their survival, and whether or not that played into the outcome of the game, who knows? But I'm sure it was kind of I'm sure it was in the back of their heads. So it's just with Penn State, I didn't realize they didn't score an offensive touchdown
nope.
the entire game. They had the pick 6 and then the 2 field goals. So
They haven't scored an offense. They haven't scored an offensive touchdown against the Ohio State defense in like 8 quarters or
yeah,
9
that's
quarters.
tough.
It's
And I mean, I was hearing around the college football world that Drew Aller had made some leaps and bounds ahead. I know it's Ohio State and they have a good defense, but
We heard the same thing about Sean Clifford and the quarterback before that, and the quarterback before that, and Trace McSorley.
it's always
It's the same
yeah.
story, different year.
If they can't get their ground game going and get at least that to lean on and work into some play action and stuff like that, I'm sorry, but Drew Aller isn't going to win you football games.
I mean, they can
with
do
his
it against
arm.
bad. They can do it against bad defenses.
They
Drew
can get away
Aller
with it.
went off against USC.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And I think a lot of that also could boil down to scheme because, like, you've got guys, like, you've got Singleton, you've got Katron Allen. Those are good backs. Offensive line is at least solid because you're doing it against non-Ohio State teams, non-Michigan
Yeah.
teams in the Big Ten.
Mhm.
It's just perplexing. I don't know.
I don't know. I
Yeah.
just feel like they would have force fed Tyler Warren a lot more than they did. I mean, he only touched the ball 7 times, which is he had three rushes and 4 receptions, and he is by far their most versatile athlete.
I didn't even notice
Hey.
Tyler Warren. Sorry, he had. Oh, this
Yeah.
is the tight end. Sorry, I saw him multiple times. I was like, I don't think the name ever stuck in, but
Yeah,
he
yeah,
is a
Yeah.
stud, dude. Since that
Yeah.
USC game, I
Yeah.
like him.
yeah, yeah.
Mhm.
I mean, he's their Brock Bowers. Like they
Yeah.
could put him anywhere on the field, and he's gonna do well. He's just for some reason he was just really quiet in this game. I did see that Ohio State definitely schemed for him. He was being doubled on every play. If he was in the box, they had at least 7 guys in the box. If he was out wide, he was being doubled with like he would have the corner or the weak side linebacker on him, and the safety was on that side, especially in the red zone. So Ohio State. Shout out to the DC over at Ohio State, whose
Yeah.
name I do not know, but they schemed for 44 very well.
Yeah.
Also, one thing I'm looking at the box score right now. I did watch the game. I'm not a box score watcher. Stop typing that comment. Call me a box score watcher. Penn State wide receivers. Any guesses on how many receptions total a Penn State wideout caught on Saturday?
I can't guess because I already saw it.
Brandon,
I'll
anything?
guess. Every receiver combined.
Every wide receiver combined. Don't count Tyler Warren.
I'm gonna say something stupid like 8.
3.
I,
I mean,
Good
you're far off.
lord.
3.
I knew it had to be in the single digits,
Wait,
but come on,
is
guys.
wait, what about Nicholas Singleton?
Nick Singleton's a running back.
You were saying all the wide receivers combined.
Oh, all the wide receivers. Oh,
Yeah.
okay. I
Yeah.
thought you were saying the receptions not named Tyler. Okay, I got you. Yeah, that's tough.
That's pretty inexcusable.
Yep.
It is.
To be honest. That's I don't
That's
know
not.
how you do that. That's a game plan
It's brutal.
thing.
Yeah.
Obviously.
Like,
I mean,
I
maybe you
watched-
got punched in the mouth by the defense, but still.
Yeah. I mean, I watched the game. Drew didn't play that bad. It just seemed like no one was ever open.
Yeah. They were
And-
smothering.
Yeah, like I forget who was on the call, but they were saying how aggressive Ohio State's secondary is, and how they were legitimately just playing man coverage, and saying our DBs are better than your wide receivers. And I mean,
They might have been right.
They were correct. Yeah.
You're in for a long day anytime a defense can do that against you.
Yeah. If somebody can man you up, man to man, like that, guy for guy, and clamp you, it's there's not much you're gonna do.
Yeah. Also had one of the most ridiculous interceptions in the end zone I've ever seen in my
Oh
life.
yeah, that was crazy, dude.
It was like, Brandon, just to paint you a word picture.
Thank you.
Yeah. So there's a wide receiver right here, right? And this is the boundary. I'm the DB, and I'm going to swat in his face, and as I'm contracting my arm back down to like swat again, I catch the ball in the crook of my arm over my shoulder and toe tap for the pick.
That's a great word picture, Drew. I appreciate that.
It was
that's very
ridiculous.
impressive. Yeah, that's nice. Yeah, that's pretty ridiculous. But Ohio State's gonna have a shot at it this year if they can. They play Indiana, right?
They do play Indiana.
So that'll be for the
They've
conference championship, essentially, right? Because I don't think Oregon's
Yep.
schedule is anything for the rest of the way.
They've got Purdue this week, Northwestern next week, and then they play Indiana at home. And then they close the season with Michigan, as we're all aware. But that is, if Indiana can keep doing Indiana things, and if Ohio State wins out, up to that point, that should be a conference championship semifinal.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Most definitely.
Yeah, just because, after Penn State, it drops down to Iowa, who's 4-2 in conference play.
Yeah.
So.
Oh.
All right.
There you go.
I think I think that's plenty of time in the Big Ten, fellas.
Yeah.
Yes, let's move on from the Big Ten. Obviously we have the world's largest outdoor cocktail party. Was there anything else we wanted to touch on before that? I know we have some thoughts about the Georgia game. Anything else for y'all?
We can talk a little
Ooh.
Louisville Clemson.
Yeah. So yeah, do we want to go in chronological order, or do we want to go in like save Georgia for last because that's where our heart lies?
We could
I'm good
honestly,
either way.
we could do Georgia last and then kind of carry it over into Georgia Ole Miss and then get into some more preview stuff if you want.
Yeah, I
There we
like
go.
that.
I don't like that at all. I don't mind that at all.
You don't
Sorry.
like that at all? Okay, come
Fuck
fight
off.
me.
Sorry.
Come fight me about it.
Funny. Yeah. So who's next? Clemson. You said.
Yeah, Louisville Clemson.
Bet.
I kind of caught bits and pieces of this game. I
Yeah.
know Louisville did block a field goal and return it for a touchdown, but it just seemed, I mean, they were all over them. They were up 17-7 at half and then 26-7 at the end of the third quarter. So it was really never a contest
Yeah. When you've got the home
since the first
fans
quarter. But
leaving in the fourth quarter, it's never a good look.
yeah.
Yeah, not great.
Phil
Not
Maffa had a
great.
pretty good day. 30 carries, 171 rushing yards, 2 touchdowns, but
Yeah,
it
not. I hate to be a box score watcher, but it isn't like anybody had necessarily terrible performance from Clemson.
yeah.
You know, it doesn't like they had. I can't tell if they had any turnovers. I know no interceptions. Maybe they fumbled. I don't know, but
Ultimately just couldn't get into the end zone.
yeah,
There were
yeah. It sounds like they just got beat. You know, I mean, outplayed. No self-inflicted errors for the most part.
No,
Yeah.
I mean, and yeah, they won the turnover battle. I mean, Louisville had a fumble. Never mind. They recovered their own fumble. Yeah, so no, pretty clean game
Yeah.
out of the ACC, which I don't feel like we see very often. In college football in general, like there always seems to be at least one turnover,
Yeah.
down the
Yeah.
stretch. But yeah, like you said, I mean, not really. Listen, I had money on other games, so I did not expect this game to be what it was. So yeah, I caught bits and pieces of it, but yeah, I mean that I think Noah, you hit the nail on the head. Not really any self inflicted wounds. You just got manned up and beaten. And I feel like this kind of muddies the waters a little bit for Clemson, at least in the conference race.
Yeah, there's. I was gonna say. I think we're. What did you say? I would say we're on a crash course for a Miami SMU
Yeah, at the moment
conference
At
championship.
this point, yes.
we are stuck in a 2-man race. They're both 5-0 in conference play. I mean, and SMU's schedule is
I just looked at it. They're fine.
They
yeah.
whipped
I
the
mean,
shit out of Pitt.
Yeah,
yeah,
that was
they did.
impressive. That's
Yeah,
impressive.
like SMU is firing on all cylinders, at least on the offensive side of the ball. I mean, the past since the BYU game that they lost, they have turned it up to an 11. They scored 66, 42, 34, 40, 28, and 48.
That's a very quality loss too. BYU,
Yeah.
they're having a good
BYU's
season.
are currently winning the Big 12.
Yeah.
So, I mean,
That tells you anything.
yeah. Yeah. So,
Top 10
honestly,
team.
yeah. I mean, and they should have no problems hosting Boston College and playing at Virginia and then hosting Cal. So,
Yeah, I think
it's crazy.
that is a very entertaining conference championship in Miami and SMU. I think that's a good old fashioned shootout in the
Yep.
ACC.
Yep.
So that would be nice. Nice to
So-
see. Very advertisable. Two blue bloods have ascended back to the top of the conference. Obviously, SMU not in the ACC back in the day, but the Pony Express is back. I mean, I think people oftentimes I feel like lump in SMU to the blue blood conversation just because of the success that they've had in the past. It's debatable whether they are, but you know they're pretty historically a good team up until the death penalty, and kind of
All right,
you know fizzled out. So
taking a step back to Clemson real quick. Does a 2-loss Clemson like move the needle as far as being a top 12 team at the end of the year? Because they don't really
I don't
have
know. I
they
don't
don't
know.
really have a key victory.
I was gonna say, what do you
Yeah.
hang your hat on your resume? You
Losing to
lost
Georgia by 31.
you lost the two biggest games you played in.
Yeah, and I mean they have not every ranked opponent they've played this year, which is one. I'm sorry. I thought I was going to be onto something there, but Louisville wasn't even ranked. I
All
mean, they
one of
played
them.
all one of them. I mean, they played Pitt in 2 weeks. But I mean, I don't know. I don't know. It's crazy how it's funny how a seemingly insignificant loss
Yeah.
in the beginning of November can change the entire outlook for a team.
Definitely.
But anyway, yeah, okay. I don't really have much more to add on Louisville Clemson.
Yeah,
except-
me either.
Yeah.
Do we want to touch on some SEC outcomes real quick before we get to Georgia?
Absolutely.
We have
Speaking
some
of
talking point.
chaos,
Yeah, yeah. Where
I
we
mean,
starting?
All right. Let's
Big
see.
one, A&M.
oh, okay, hold on. Sorry, before we leave the ACC, shout out to SMU. Just one last time for not only beating Pitt, but beating them like a drum. It was never
Yeah.
in
Mhm.
doubt. Had SMU minus I think 8.5, and I was never worried. I turned it off.
Bro did not
straight.
sweat that. He went to bed
Not
early.
Said I don't even have to watch the rest of it. We got this. So that's
got-
always a good feeling.
We got one screen going right now, and it's watching South Carolina beat the hell out of Texas A&M.
That's a good transition.
That is a great transition. Let's get into that.
Yeah.
Like I said earlier, if you're watching the big one, but if not, go watch our Dogs of the Week video. The hopes and dreams of the Aggies pretty much dashed. Obviously, not completely out of it, but to lose in that fashion, on the road, right? And Williams-Brice. So
On the road.
that was their biggest away game for the rest of the season.
Yep.
And it showed because they did not have their best performance. And like I said earlier, South Carolina is one of the better 5-3 teams I have seen
Yeah.
ever. Honestly, they're very, very frisky.
I mean, they're
And
4
they're a good
points
football
away from
team.
being 7-1.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Yeah. So, big one from the Gamecocks, huge win, and then a very big loss for A&M. They're gonna have to be perfect the rest of the way out.
Yep.
They'll need to beat Texas if they want any kind of hope.
Yeah.
When you say that, do you mean SEC wise or CFP?
SEC championship wise, I think if they, I mean, do you think a two loss A&M with losses to South Carolina and Texas makes it in the playoff?
3 loss.
Oh shit! Then no.
And the
Yeah.
answer is no.
Yeah, I'm
was
too
just
SEC
clarifying.
brained. I'm too SEC brained. I forgot
Yeah.
about the Notre Dame game, the shit show at the beginning of the year. So,
Mhm.
they have to win out to make the playoff even.
Yep.
So
Yeah, and I agree. I do think that a win over, let's just hypothetically call it a top. I mean, they're 5 right now. Let's call them a top 5 Texas at the end of the year, even if they miss the SEC championship game, probably would be enough to get them in. But that can be a different topic for a different day. But
I think it'd be
this-
close.
yeah,
Yeah. It's an uphill battle, honestly. They did end up losing Le'Veon Moss, probably their best player, to a season-ending knee injury. It was gruesome, man.
I didn't see it, but
Took a helmet right to the knee, dude. It was.
Oh god, yeah.
Your knee's not supposed to go that way.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
They'd actually climbed back into this game. It was 14-3 South Carolina, and then A&M just before halftime had ended up being up 20-17, but then it all just fell apart.
Yep. I mean, it was a fun game. Lenoris Sellers actually figured out how to read a block.
Imagine that.
I mean, yeah, imagine that, because I texted that in the Alabama game. I was like, if Lenoris Sellers knew how to read a block, he would have 2 rushing touchdowns already, and the first quarter hadn't even ended.
Yep.
I mean, he didn't have that great of a game through the air. I mean, it was still a really good game. I mean, it was 244 and 2 touchdowns, but I think the difference here was the 106 he had on the ground and the rushing touchdown on top of Raheem Sanders having his. I mean, good God, that's a lot of rushing yards. 144 rushing yards and 2 touchdowns. I mean, damn, 286 rushing yards. Texas A&M couldn't stop a nosebleed Saturday night. Fucking
Yeah.
A.
Let's talk about Sellers a little bit more. Him being only a freshman
Mm-hmm.
is baffling to me
I
because
didn't realize that.
he
Yeah.
has
He is.
That's
improved.
impressive.
He has
Yeah.
improved so much since the beginning of the season, and honestly,
Yeah.
I might buy stock in South Carolina next year.
He has played in so many, like, not primetime games, but big games.
Mm-hmm. He's
Very
been battle tested.
reliable.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. For sure, especially in the SEC down the stretch.
Mhm.
I agree with you, Noah. They South Carolina is building something, and they're going to be a tough team to play. Very much in my eyes, like Vanderbilt. Kind of grabbing themselves and taking themselves out of the basement of the SEC. Funny enough, the Auburn probably taking their place, but it's kind of funny to say that, but that's just kind of how it is right now. And they're not a bad team at all, and they went out there and they did what they needed to do on Saturday.
I mean, South Carolina should be bowl eligible this year, which I know isn't like the minimum for them, but I feel like that's what they need to start establishing as their floor.
Mm-hmm.
Because I mean, like we've kind of seen with uh shit, uh, like Missouri a couple of years ago. They established bowl eligibility as kind of their floor, and now they've been able to like build on top of that to where I feel like Missouri's expectation now is like a 9, 10, 11 win season.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I think South Carolina is getting back to 7, 8, 9 wins is the goal, and it's very possible. They've got Vanderbilt in Nashville this weekend, and then they actually host Missouri, which I feel like could be a fun
Mm.
one.
Dude, I
That is
speaking of
that is a fun
Mizzou,
one.
I just looked at Mizzou since you brought them up. They are the
Mm.
sneakiest 6-2 football team I've ever seen in my life because
It,
they
yeah,
they got killed by Texas A&M, and I'm like, all right, season over, pack it in.
yeah.
Like,
See, that's the problem, Missouri. They win close, and when they lose, they get the doors blown off of them.
yeah.
Like, I don't.
Sorry,
I think it.
Alabama. Yeah,
No,
when they
well,
lost to
Alabama and
Bama.
Texas
But
A&M.
Well, I mean,
unless the
both
A&M
Yeah,
times.
too.
When
Yeah,
they
yeah.
lose, they
they
lose big.
big losses, like 30+ point losses in both of those
Mhm.
games.
Yeah,
So I mean, like you said, Drew, they don't really have a game where they put it. Well, I mean, other than UMass, but come on, like a conference game where they really put it to somebody.
Yeah,
yeah,
Uh,
yeah.
you
But I
know?
think this is a down year for Missouri. Like
Yeah.
they're they're 6-2, and this is already a down year for Missouri. So like
Yeah. So.
if South Carolina can claw their way up to there, if Vanderbilt can like, I'm not saying Vanderbilt is already at the levels of Missouri and South Carolina, but like if they can, we'll see how far they can make it this year. See if they get to 8 wins, so on and so forth. But the fact they're already bowl eligible before we go into the second week of November is ridiculous.
yeah.
Mhm.
Uh,
Yeah,
but
I
yeah.
love it. I love it.
Also, what the hell
Um,
happened to Luther Burden while we're on the subject?
Luther Burden. That's a great question. Uh, he
We
he
can,
should be getting force fed, but
yeah,
he's
I think
just
he's the victim of bad quarterback play
yeah.
between Brady Cook and being hurt and all that. I don't know.
You got
I
Theo
mean,
Wees on that team too, but maybe that's a topic for another day. I don't know.
dude, he only
Hmm.
has 40 catches so far
Hmm.
for
Yeah,
450 yards.
got to feed him.
It's I'm not yeah. Uh,
Weird.
Yeah, they're not having the offensive explosiveness that they've had in years past, and I don't know what it is. I'll be honest, I have not watched that many Missouri football games.
Brady Cook
Just-
hasn't been too healthy. When he's been healthy, Brady Cook's been good, but Drew
Yeah,
Pine is their backup, and he has been
yeah.
absolutely
God,
fucking dreadful.
that's a name, dude. Yeah, I can't believe he's still playing college football.
Yeah. So now I think Missouri has to win these football games. I think they've kind of been forced to resort back to good at defense, mid on offense. Whereas last year, I don't know. I just feel like the scheme was a little bit better last year. They were more explosive. They were able to take more shots. I don't think people were able to double Luther Burden like they have been so far this year.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's been tough up in Missouri.
Yeah, and I will say Cody Schrader last year, grown man. They're missing him
Yes.
a lot right now.
Mm-hmm.
He took a lot of
Mm-hmm.
pressure off. That's for sure.
Mhm.
Yep, that's a good point.
So
Also, shout out to Tennessee for beating Kentucky.
yeah, I was gonna say, do we want to touch on that real quick before we talk dogs
I mean,
or
wasn't
not?
really. There
Or
Or
wasn't really much to write
that's
home
their
about.
mention.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Kentucky hung around and then
yeah.
got away in the end.
Good job, Tennessee. You won a game that you should win. I don't mean that disrespectfully. I just mean like you should
No,
have won that game and
Kentucky's
you
good.
did. Yeah,
Yeah,
but good job. I mean, you're still in the hunt. Your season's still alive. You beat Georgia. Then
Then we'll talk.
everything is in front of you. Everything is in
Yeah.
front of you.
that's a big if.
But
We'll
yeah,
get to that
Yep.
yeah, we can get
in
to
a
that.
week.
Hey, let's take care of one game at a time. Ole Miss on the schedule.
Yeah, I was gonna say I said in a week from now.
Yeah,
We'll
for sure.
we'll shelve that one for later, but
Yep.
we can move on to Georgia to round out the recap and move into the preview content. So I know we have a lot of thoughts about this game. Obviously, was a ball game well into the fourth quarter, tied until Georgia went up and then were benefited by a snafu on a long snap on a field goal. So we're able to pull away there in the end, but the Gators hung around the whole game, partially due to the fact that Carson Beck indeed turned the ball over 3 times. I know there's been a lot of discourse about that amongst the fan base and college football at large. Me personally, I don't see Kirby going away from him. That's just how Kirby is as a coach. It's kind of reminiscent. I know it's not, we don't have a guy like Justin Fields on the bench, but, when Jake Fromm was the guy, when you're the guy, you're the guy. And it takes a lot to not be like the guy in the Georgia system. And as of right now, I think it's pretty clear that he does not have nearly as much faith in Stockton or Rashada behind him to be able to take over the operation at this point in the season. So we shall see. But fellas, I want to know. I was there. It was a tough watch. They pulled it out in the end, but I want to know y'all's thoughts.
I had like I mentioned before, I had some non football fanatics over for this game. And I got looked at like I was a crazy person. For There was one moment we threw an interception, and I don't even know what I did. It was just like a visceral reaction that my body had, and I just like jumped up in the air and like pogo sticked 3 or 4 times, and I'm just like hands down on my sides, like fuck, damn it. I had to leave the
I
room.
feel that. I feel
Yeah.
that.
I mean,
I had to
Well,
leave
yeah.
the room,
th-
but
those interceptions, they were terrible.
ugly.
Awful.
Like throwing
Ugly.
into triple coverage, brother. Like,
Yeah,
what are we doing
yeah.
here?
I mean,
Yeah.
the thing is, he still had 309 yards
Yeah. It
and
makes,
2 touchdowns.
makes no sense.
I
Repo the
mean,
Lamborghini. I don't know.
Honestly.
yeah. I mean, literally, I know this is going to sound so stupid, but literally just get rid of the picks, and he had a great day. 309, 2 touchdowns. But obviously that's also like saying, if no one starved, communism wouldn't be so bad. So
Yeah. No, it's hard to overlook for sure.
Yeah.
And y'all are right. There's been some interceptions this year where it's like tip ball bullshit. Wide receiver stops running the route, what have you. You can be like, oh, that's not really his fault. I mean, these interceptions were obviously him trying to extend the play, do a little too much, not wanting to take a sack or throwing the ball away, what have you, and trying to make something happen and just making such, I don't know. Like I know you can fit it in tight windows, but like when there's 3 guys there, you're not fitting. There's no window to fit it in. It's just not there.
Is it a confidence thing? Is it trying to do too much? Is it?
I think it might be a mixture.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. I feel like he's still confident. He's still slinging it. I mean, he has to be confident with how many times. This Georgia offense is the most prone to pass in a while, in my opinion, just because our ground game isn't really where it's been in the past. So we're relying on Carson's arm even more. So to be having the amount of attempts he has, he needs the confidence. But I don't know exactly what it is. I don't think we've had quarterbacks with 40 attempts. I mean, I know Stetson had that some, but not in the volume that Carson has had in a while.
those were more mid to short range throws.
Yeah.
Those were pretty much a continuation of our run game. Whereas I feel like Carson has taken more shots down the field, which, like I mentioned, 309 passing yards. Like, not a bad day from a yardage perspective. But shout out, speaking of the run game, shout out to Nate Frazier, able to step up situationally in a game like that, rivalry game where you're losing, and get you a cool 82 yards. I feel like that was a very quiet 82 yards.
Yeah.
Yeah. Also, soft ass flag.
Gurley did the same thing back in the
Gurley did
day.
the same
He-
shit.
I
think maybe Frazier lingered too much on
on
the
the
Slash.
throat.
because
I think
when
Gurley's
Gurley did it, he
throw-
went like that. He didn't do across the throat. He went like it's over like a
Yeah.
But
Yeah. I don't know. Some of the calls I saw on Saturday were just a little soft. Like I meant to mention this in the Ohio State Penn State video or earlier in this video, but there was also a taunting call where a Penn State player, DB, tackled one of the wide receivers and like got up and kind of walked over him and kind of flexed on his way up, and they called that taunting, and that resulted in a 15-yard penalty that gave Ohio State a touchdown. I'm not saying it turned over the outcome of the game, but
it helped.
it helped.
I mean, I
But
think
yeah.
they've always been super strict on if you're directing it towards somebody, it's a pretty big no-no. Obviously, Frazier was not, but they've also been cracking down on like there's been a lot of that and a lot of brandishing weapons going on. Whether it's airing it out or lifting up your shirt to show the piece.
Yeah.
Can't do it.
Pull a samurai sword next time.
Yeah.
Was it
Yeah.
the South
So-
Carolina defender that like just pumped shotgun? Just
into Jackson Dart, just unloaded. Yeah, it was. I mean that as far
down
as
30.
that penalty goes,
Yeah.
that is the most.
Yeah.
That's like the textbook definition of
He got
that.
his money's worth.
He did.
Yeah, he did. That is a crazy thing to do down 4 touchdowns.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, overall, a frustrating day when, listen, the contents of our text messages did not have to be disclaimed, but some of those contents were score predictions, and I don't think a single one of us had a spread smaller than 20 points. So when you end up winning by 14, it doesn't seem that bad, but just the flow of the game, I think, made us feel a little bit worse than a 14-point victory.
They didn't cover, but if we would have covered the spread a half a point more, that would be very much considered, I believe, a backdoor cover. So with that last touchdown, the speed sweep. So
yeah, I think some books closed at 13.5, but in my mind, the spread was 14.5. Not that the spread really matters in this game. I was hoping to win by 20 at least, but not my favorite game.
No, not my favorite, but I will say Florida is frisky also. I wouldn't say to the level of South Carolina, but every loss they have on record is to a ranked team. If you look at it, Georgia, Tennessee, Texas A&M, Miami, they're very much victims of the hardest schedule in college football, by far and away. So I knew it going into it. They're never an easy win. The rivalry is intense. So to get out of there with a 2-score win, I still think you have something to hang your hat on. But a lot of mistakes that need to be cleaned up going forward for Georgia if they want to make a push and do what they want to do this season. And I'll end it by saying I'm very glad after a couple of questionable targeting calls against Texas that the targeting call in this game did get overturned.
Yep.
Because I was there and the Florida fans were like, "Oh, he got targeted, this and that," and I'm like, "That's soft."
Yeah.
I mean, it was a fantastic hit.
He
really
caught one hell of a shoulder, right? Like there was no.
Yeah.
If
you want to hit hard in today's college football, that is how you have to do it.
Absolutely.
He did it perfectly. So.
And yes, last thing I want to say about this, I'm really glad we're having this type of conversation after a win.
Yes.
Rather than after a loss.
Yep.
So, It's good that we're still having this conversation after winning by 14. We obviously did not have our best game, and we still won by 14 points. Now, would it have been a different outcome if Florida wasn't down to a former Yale quarterback? Potentially, but hey, that's how shit happens every now and then.
Next man up.
Yeah, we've got to
Or
clean
George
some.
has been on the losing end of a lot of injuries. I mean,
Exactly.
given probably not as much on the quarterback end, but still.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously, if Lagway would have remained healthy, I do think he would have given Georgia some more issues.
Yep.
But you can't control that.
No. So we definitely have some things to clean up to accomplish what we want to clean up, or what we want to accomplish. But I don't think it's like the sky is not falling. I still think that Carson Beck still has it in him to be a great quarterback, and to be a potential first rounder. Just he needs to go out and show us, and maybe you know it's hard. It's getting harder to defend him when I think he's thrown 9 picks in the last 3 games. But I genuinely
Correct.
think he just needs to buckle down and, you know, listen, I understand spending time with your girlfriend. I understand, messing around with your eye black, messing around with your mouthpiece, changing it up, trying to find a new groove. But, like, I think he just needs to get back to basics and
Yeah.
run the offense.
The eye black made it that much worse. I think.
I'm
In
like,
my
Yeah.
opinion, I'm like,
Well,
he's obviously having an identity crisis. He has not looked the same the past 4 games. Something's been different.
yeah.
The eye black, the freaking towel, the mouthpiece has changed a couple of times. I just think you need to pick a look, stick with it. I'm not comparing, but I'm just saying. Stetson Bennett walked out on the field. You knew exactly what he was going to be wearing.
Damn right.
Jake Fromm walked out on the field. You knew exactly what he was going to be wearing. Like, listen, Carson, this is not a fashion show. You are a white SEC quarterback, and your name is not Jackson Dart. So, drip should not be in your vocabulary. Go throw for 350 and 3 touchdowns and stun these hoes.
I just want
I think that's a great
2023
closing
Carson
statement.
back.
I do too.
Yes.
Just want him back.
Yes.
We all do. We all do. Noah, do you have any thoughts to wrap this up?
No, it's just I mean, defense. All this talk about the quarterback play has kind of eclipsed the turnaround that the defense has had. I think since
It has.
like
It has.
watching the Alabama game back and then watching the team that has taken the field the last 2 games, it's a different defense. They're putting it together.
They absolutely are. And that's going to need to be the case moving forward for Georgia to overcome some of the other woes on the offensive side and turnover side if those do not get fixed. But anyways, that is it for our recap. Let us know in the comments what you think about these games and outlooks for the teams moving forward. We'd love to hear what you have to say. I think we're going to get right into some quick preview content. We're going to stick with Georgia, right?
Oh, yeah.
They travel to Oxford, Mississippi this upcoming weekend to face off against Ole Miss. Right now, they're a 2.5-point favorite, but if you look at ESPN's FPI, take that how you will. Their metric that's not the most renowned thing in the sports world. However, Ole Miss has a 53.9% chance to win this game. So obviously, a lot of people, or the person who wrote this algorithm, has faith in Ole Miss, and I think some other people might agree with the performance obviously Georgia had rolling into the biggest away game remaining on their schedule.
I mean, I don't know. If you go based off of the 2 games that these 2 teams have most recently played, then yeah, I would give the edge to Ole Miss. But we're going full body at work. I
That's
mean,
people will have recency bias
yeah.
for sure, but looking at Georgia, what they did going into Texas, I mean, I feel like that's hard to ignore.
Yep.
Ole Miss, obviously, they're good at home, but they have the big blemish of that Kentucky game that they lost at home. So, and it's also not a night game; it is a 3:30 kick. So I'm sure they'll get up, and that'll be a rowdy environment. They're gonna have to make it that to have a chance in this game, I think. But we'll see if that's enough.
And the really bad thing about the Kentucky game is it wasn't a shootout. Kentucky forced Ole Miss to play Kentucky ball
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
and held them to 17 points. Now, since then, it looks like Ole Miss has become, like, at least on the offensive side of the ball, the lowest amount of points they've scored is 26, and that was in a lackadaisical win over Oklahoma, and then obviously they have the rout over Arkansas, putting up 63. So the offense seems to be coming alive at the right time. Um, Hosting Georgia, who I don't know, whose defense seems to be coming alive at the right time. Um, and I mean, we've kind of seen this play out before. I'm pretty sure after it's all said and done, we'll end up playing Ole Miss 3 years in a row after next season. So very
Yeah.
familiar teams. Hugh, not Hugh. Good God, that was a flashback. Sorry.
Whoa.
Man.
Whoa,
His bag
whoa.
is deep.
Mm-hmm.
Lane and Kirby obviously have a lot of familiarity with each other, being on the same staff, um, and just both being in the sport for a while. They've got a lot of tape on each other. Um, it'll be an interesting one. I think if history says anything, you got to kind of side with the dogs here. But I don't know. Out of like the three-headed monster that we had schedule wise, this was probably the one I was the least worried about. But now that it's here, it's like we could lose this game. I don't know.
Mm-hmm. I
But,
think, like you said, Drew, I think the big storyline here is whether you believe in the Georgia defense more or the Ole Miss offense more. I think that's really what it boils down to at this point. Just with how, Ole Miss's defense, how they've been performing, Georgia's offensive woes. I think that's what it's going to look like, and we'll see. Obviously, Ole Miss is, what they are offensively. That's kind of their entire identity. And then Georgia's defense coming back around, getting some key pieces back. People who are getting healthy and Kirby and Glenn Schumann scheming it up back there. So I think it'll be fun to watch. I mean, I'm biased as a Georgia fan. I'd like to lean that I believe in Georgia's defense more, but that Ole Miss offense is potent and it's hard to overlook it.
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. But we've also seen them stall out. So
Yeah.
Yep.
yeah,
Yep.
especially in we got Dan Jackson back for a full game. That kid is a monster. Like,
Janelle
okay,
Aguero. Very
Mm-hmm.
good.
see,
Good
like
football players.
the funny thing is, like, I feel like Dan Jackson used to be like a meme, and
He was.
now he is like the cornerstone of that defense, pretty much getting everybody
He's
lined up and
he's legitimately one of the best players on that defense,
He's the
and that's
vet
not
back
no
there.
joke.
Yeah.
And I mean, he might not be, probably gets picked on from a lot of people. He's a white safety, right? He the way that he flies around the field, just knowing where to be and when to be there is impressive, and that comes with experience, which he has plenty of. But he is one of the biggest leaders in that entire defensive unit.
Yeah.
So to have him back, I don't think can be understated how important or overstated how important that is for that Georgia defense.
he is in every play.
It's true.
Like, not on
Every
the field.
play,
I mean,
yeah, every
in the
play
hall.
he's a part of, he is near or around where the play is being made for the most part. If he physically can't be.
Yeah.
So
Other white guy, Chambliss. Chambliss is swarming too.
Yeah.
yeah.
And ultimately,
Yeah.
I think the game comes down to the trenches. I mean, Ole Miss is going to try to air the ball out, yeah. But if and it's a football cliche, but it's true. Just whichever offensive line and defensive line controlled line of scrimmage, ultimately, that's who walks away. Like especially, Georgia trying to get back to running the football the past few weeks. They've been very, very pass heavy, as we've kind of discussed, but been trying to get back to the run. And Ole Miss, even though Jackson Dart literally is 3,200 passing yards, you gotta be able to keep the defense guessing. You can't throw it every time.
I mean, if Jalen Walker can have 5 sacks this game, that'd be amazing. I mean, Jackson Dart is arguably one of the most confident quarterbacks in college football. So if you can get him shaken up, and get him second guessing himself, himself, especially against our secondary,
Mhm.
we can cause a lot of havoc, both on the front and back end. He could have a long day, but I feel like that's very easy to say. Like, oh, if this happens, then obviously this is going to happen. But like, what are the odds we get Jackson Dart that much? Not that high, but it'd be nice.
Yeah.
It'd be nice
Hmm.
because
It would
those
be.
are like Brandon said. I mean, that's obviously the two strengths of each team are going up against each other. And then if Georgia's offense can click on all cylinders, if our defense can at least hold Ole Miss's offense to kind of a stalemate to where they're not scoring on every drive, but like they're still potent, they're still going to make plays. And then if our offense can click, I feel like Ole Miss's defense, especially in the back end, is little full of holes. Hopefully Carson can pick them apart, get his mind right, and get back to where he was last year. So we'll see.
Uja, I think it'll be a good matchup. I don't know if we want to pick this one. I think we might have all the same pick, so that might not even be worth anything. But and I would say cover the spread, but it's such a low spread. You win is probably going to be covering. So maybe we just won't. Maybe we'll leave it at that, huh? And our viewers, let us know in the comments if you think Ole Miss has what it takes to take down the Dogs this week. I think it comes down to what version of Georgia we see, and if we see the version of Georgia that came out against Texas, even with their offensive woes, if Georgia's firing on all cylinders, I find it hard to believe that they would get beat. So we'll see on that front. But moving on from the Dogs, I'm looking at the other matchups of the week. Obviously, I don't know if we want to touch on it now or later. There's Alabama LSU. I don't know if there's any other matchups that are worth talking about, or if y'all are interested in talking about. Maybe we can touch on Vandy, South Carolina. That's a fun SEC one. Real quick, South Carolina travels to Nashville and is currently a 3.5-point favorite. There were rumblings in this recording earlier about that being one of the three locks of the week. So take that how you will, but Vanderbilt has played very, very well at home this season, taking down Alabama and taking Texas to the wire, losing by. They only lost by 3, right? Or 4 at
South
home.
Carolina?
Vanderbilt,
Mhm.
Vanderbilt.
to Texas.
They
Was
lost by
Lost by
3
three.
to Texas.
yeah, that's what I thought.
And they had a
So
prime
you know.
position to go tie that game.
Yep.
mm-hmm.
Yep. I
Yeah.
think it was
So
27-24.
Yep.
So,
mhm. So Vanderbilt has shown they're dangerous at home, and Diego Pavia has been the man for the Commodores this season up until this point. South Carolina obviously coming off a huge win against Texas A&M at home, showing flexing their muscles, showing what they can do when they play well on both sides of the ball. We've talked about this a couple times already, but South Carolina is a very good 5-3 team. They're a few plays away from being 7-1. Really one true loss, and that Ole Miss game getting beat pretty good, but LSU and Alabama not going their way. So I personally think this game will be very good. I am of the mindset of that being my lock of the week is Vanderbilt being a 3.5-point dog in this game. I know South Carolina is coming off a great performance, but I don't know. There's something about the Commodores this year, man. I'm rocking with them. I really
We
am.
all just love
Yeah.
this line, I guess.
Yeah, we do, and it's 100% going to come down to quarterback play. Like we alluded to earlier, if you've been watching the long form, when we talked about South Carolina's victory over Texas A&M, the Lenore Sellers had the game of his career. Um, not only through the air but also on the ground. And Diego Pavia didn't have his best game against Auburn, but that kind of makes me feel a little bit better that they didn't need him to have the game of his career to pull it out. Just hopefully he's able to have this extra week of rest and be mindful about that. There's no way he's not playing. Clark Lee
Definitely not.
when asked about Diego, like, yeah, I don't know if I could keep him off the field even if I wanted to.
That's the leader right there.
Yeah. So I think this is definitely going to come down to who can control the pace of play more. I think if Vanderbilt can limit this game to just a couple of possessions that hopefully go in their favor, they should be able to take care of business. And then South Carolina the same way. I mean, South Carolina's front on the defensive side of the ball is ridiculous. They have an amazing pass rush. I don't know how much Vanderbilt's going to be throwing the ball, but just with like their spread triple option hybrid, I think that if defensive ends can get upfield and contain all of that motion and window dressing, it could get ugly. But yeah, I mean that's what they said about Texas too. So and Vanderbilt only lost that game by 3.
Yeah,
but
Vandy be
a
a
fun one.
force to be reckoned with. Yeah,
Yep.
and I will say, even if Pavia didn't have his best game, they went going into Jordan Hare. I don't care how good Auburn is as Vanderbilt, and getting out of there with the win is an accomplishment in and of itself. Obviously, a sign of the times, but that's something that's a big deal for Vanderbilt. And like I said, I don't care how good or bad Auburn is. That's a big deal. Already bowl eligible, like Drew said earlier in the video. The first week of November.
Yep.
So pretty crazy to think about for Vanderbilt. Quite the turnaround. Big fan of Clark Lee and what he's been doing. I know this has been a Vandy schlop fest, honestly, but yeah, honestly, that's what we're doing. We're doing tricks on it.
Yeah.
So
Hey, man,
let us know in the comment.
Ticket prices for this game. I remember the Alabama ticket prices were like $5, some bullshit like that. Tickets as low as $96 this weekend. Vandy versus South Carolina. So
I mean, it's going to be a good game.
That will be a good game no matter what. Yes.
Yeah.
For sure.
Say something nice about South Carolina to kind of counteract.
Okay.
Lenore Sellers is good.
Lenore Sellers, yeah.
Sellers is good. They have one of the best front sevens in the SEC.
Yeah. All black uniforms are nice. I like those.
Yes. So before I think we move, if I'm catching the vibe of this video correctly, before we move on to the game of the week, I would just like to point out a conference we haven't mentioned yet.
Go for it.
The Big 12. There are 2 key games in the Big 12 this week. One really key, and then the other one's just kind of needs to, But anyway, I'm gonna get right into it.
Go for it.
So as the standings are right now, Colorado and Iowa State are currently tied for second in the Big 12. And Iowa State just lost to Texas Tech, and Colorado plays Texas Tech this week. So if Colorado can beat Texas Tech, then that kind of covers the back door for that either second or third tiebreaker. It would force either the third or fourth tiebreaker, whichever one I'm referring to. But if Iowa State loses this week, Colorado has nothing but green grass in front of them to make the Big 12 championship game, which I think is nuts.
That's crazy.
That's impressive to say. With all the, everybody's like the dog pile on Colorado. Us even admittedly at some points.
That was fun last year though. We got shit on them at every turn.
And yeah, but year one growing pains is expected. What they're doing this year is also impressive for sure. Very sneaky. Haven't watched. Admittedly, personally, haven't watched that much Colorado football this season, but Dion getting them in this spot poised to make the Big 12 championship if they do what they need to do and have some things go their way is very impressive. And I'd like to give them their flowers for sure.
Yep. And yeah, I mean, now have they had to have a couple of things go their way, like Kansas State dropping 2 conference games? Absolutely, because Kansas State is Colorado's 1 conference loss. However, I mean, and Iowa State dropping a game to Texas Tech was not on anybody's bingo card this past week, but it happened. So sometimes you just got to be there when chaos ensues to be able to benefit from it. So I mean, they're a pretty sneaky 6-2 team with a shot to make the Big 12 championship game. But yes, I mean, I did make a TikTok about this earlier. But if Iowa State loses another game and Colorado wins out, then Colorado has nothing but green grass in front of them. If not, if they both win out, they don't play each other, so things could get hairy. Going down to level 3 or level 4 of the tiebreakers, and it'll be interesting. It'll be very interesting. But I believe Yeah, because if Iowa State beats Kansas State, then Kansas State beat Colorado earlier in the season, so that would be like, oh, that's the tiebreaker. But if Colorado wins out, then they'll have the win over Texas Tech, who has the win over Kansas State. Which,
Yeah.
so if as long as I've made that abundantly clear, the Big 12 could get very interesting. But yes, I am now ready to move on to the next one.
Let's do it. We will wrap it at the marquee matchup of the day. The Crimson Tide travel to LSU and face off in Death Valley. Alabama is currently a 2.5-point favorite in this matchup. And according to the FPI, a 69.8% chance to win this game. So it looks like the model is clearly favoring the Tide, even traveling to Death Valley.
Dibs, lock, dibs.
FPI loves Alabama and FPI loves Texas. I've noticed.
They like them a lot.
I made a TikTok today about the FPI, basically questioning the validity of any of it, really.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, who knows what they feed that algorithm, to be honest with you. I don't know what that model looks like. So I know probably a lot of advanced analytics go into that machine.
Yeah.
So, you know.
It's funny because like I listened to a podcast that is centered around gambling where one of the guys operates like 95% of his bets off of the advanced analytics. And I'm listening to him, and then I go check out the FPI, and they hardly ever match up. I don't know what they're taking into
I don't know what they're
account.
looking at then, man. I don't know what they're looking at.
I don't know.
Makes no sense.
But
FPI doesn't know ball.
No ball. That's right. Obviously, huge game for both of these teams to keep their hopes alive. Alabama.
It's an elimination game.
It is an elimination game at this point in the season. Obviously, Alabama can't afford anything more in terms of losses. It's already taken 2 SEC losses, so at this point they need to win out and they need help. And then LSU with their loss against Texas A&M last week. Not much room for error on either side of the ball here, but I do think being in Death Valley is a huge advantage, and there is a lot of film on the blueprint of stopping Jalen Milroe and the Alabama offense. And if you can do that, I don't think their defensive unit this year is nearly what it's been in the past. So,
I mean, yeah, LSU, I feel like, I don't know, I feel like LSU still might have a little bit more to play for here, just because they're not 100% in the driver's seat as far as making the conference championship game. They have become really big Texas fans as of late.
Yeah.
But and they've become huge Ole Miss fans and huge Texas fans and then huge Georgia fans when they play Tennessee, because that's pretty much what LSU needs to guarantee a spot in Atlanta. But I think now if I'm in those locker rooms, I'm like, hey guys, we can't really control our own destiny when it comes to making the SEC championship game. So let's not focus on that. We're going to focus on winning this game. And then, taking it one game at a time. If we can do that, we should have enough to get into the playoffs and potentially host a playoff game. Potentially.
Yeah.
I'm not saying they will, just because they have that disgusting loss against USC to open the season. But
yeah,
so I mean,
a playoff game in Death Valley would be
exactly. And even if they miss out on the SEC championship, and we've been talking about it recently, that's not a death sentence. In some situations, it's honestly preferable to not have to play in that game. And then if you're in a position to get a home game, first round of the playoffs instead of that SEC championship, and probably play a team inferior to you, who you would be facing in that SEC championship in your own backyard, you're going to be okay. So, or LSU with everything in front of them, even if they don't make the SEC championship. However, Alabama fighting for their lives here. Desperation mode for the Tide. 2 SEC losses. It's looking, like I said before, they need to win out and they need help. So this is where it starts for them. I know it's in Death Valley, but I will say we'll see what this Alabama team is made of, because obviously it's not a Nick Saban-led Alabama team anymore. But I think there's something to be said about this is truly an elimination game for them. And if they lose this, playoffs, kiss them goodbye.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, they're pretty much out of the SEC race already. They're just fighting to stay alive.
I mean, both these teams kind of on the outside looking in, but I mean, CFP still in question. Like you said, Brandon, it's looking like basically an elimination game. I also think this is a legacy game for Garrett Nussmeier. So he's a junior, right? In big games, he's been very up and down, inconsistent. I mean, against A&M, 50% completion, 2 touchdowns, 3 picks. But, I mean, he threw for 405 yards, but, that's not good enough to get it done. Overtime win against Ole Miss, 43% completion, 3 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. It's sloppy, but it's enough in some cases and not enough in others. I think this is the game that especially if he doesn't come back next year, which he would be kind of stupid to not come back next year, this is the kind of game that will begin to shape that legacy, like how he's viewed entering next season, because right now, I mean, we don't really know that much still, he's got the tools, but just has not put it together. So I'm looking for him to step up in this one, honestly. Alabama's secondary is fine. They're not world beaters by any means, so I'm curious to see what he'll bring.
Yeah, I think regardless of record or like what's at stake here, I mean, at the end of the day, this is also a rivalry game. I think it's taken a step back because Nick isn't on the sidelines anymore, and I think him being the active coach at Alabama definitely stoked the flames every time these two faced off. But I mean, there still is that history, and historically, this game has been for the driver's seat in the SEC West. But I mean, it'll be a fun one. LSU crowd will definitely be into it. 6:30 local time, and it'll be dark now thanks to daylight savings time ending. So it'll be raucous.
Yeah.
I'll for
get
sure.
Drunk right next to him. I'm riding in spirit, boys.
That's right.
I don't know if we want to do picks. I think we're all leaning LSU. That's the kind of the vibe that I get. Or does anybody want to step in and say they think Alabama's? I don't know. Do we want to pick spread, money line, game winner? I don't know what we want to do. What do y'all feel like?
My heart says Tigers.
Yeah, I feel Tigers. I mean, Harold Perkins still? Is he hurt or is he playing? I thought he got hurt, but I might have been dreaming.
I don't know. They've been doing some stupid bullshit where they were dropping him into coverage and like playing him more as a linebacker. Let him come off the edge and just terrorize opposing quarterbacks. Bless you.
Thank you.
Oh yeah, he's out.
Let him chase Milrow around in circles. But
in spirit.
Yeah.
The ghost of Harold Perkins chasing around Milrow, maybe, but that's a tough blow. I guess I don't know ball. I don't know how long he's been out for, but obviously not great for that LSU front seven.
Whoa.
Hey now. I like the Tigers. Yeah. I like the Tigers, I think. My heart says it. I'm not going to reconcile my heart with my brain right now.
No.
Because the thing is like in the past, my what I would hang my hat on is like, oh, you can't bet against Nick Saban most of the time, and this and this and that. He'll have him ready. They'll be disciplined, whatnot. DeBoer, different team, a lot less discipline, still getting his feet underneath him. I think LSU gets a big home win and keeps their hopes alive, to be honest with y'all. So.
I agree. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I would bet it right now, but I don't know. I've been steered in the right way too many times to go off on my own. So I'm gonna wait until I can.
Oh, smart man.
Yeah.
Do your due diligence.
Do my due diligence.
Not everything has to be a vibes pick.
No.
View the injury report.
Exactly.
Watch the coach's presser.
Yeah, what's DeBoer wearing to this game? Is he gonna wear a polo? Is he gonna wear a hoodie?
Honestly,
Is he not professional enough?
Walmart
What are we
if I'm-
doing?
if I'm DeBoer, one time I'm walking out in a 3-piece suit and a top hat. You know, just really
Just
throwing
to
off
say
the vibes.
a big
Just to
middle
say I
finger to
did.
everybody. Oh, I'm
Hey.
not professional enough. There you go.
Tuxedo.
Okay. He's tuxedo, like Step Brothers,
Yeah.
or he walks out wearing a houndstooth suit. You know, paying homage to the bear.
Yeah. Yeah. Would be a power move for sure.
I would.
And then he loses, and then he has to retire on the spot.
He's got to burn it at midfield.
Yeah. Could you imagine him coming on the
Wow.
mic? All right, everybody, don't leave. I'm going to strip butt ass and burn this outfit because it obviously didn't work. Sorry.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Okay,
No,
Brandon, timeout. All right, last
Yeah.
bonus segment, real quick. Did you see the videos at the Georgia-Florida game of the Jacksonville police beating up on the fans? Okay.
I saw the main one. I need to go rewatch the second one, but I saw the one where he was just getting wailed on, dude.
Absolutely.
It's insane.
You mean that wasn't Brandon in the video? That's crazy.
It could have been. We didn't see any faces.
You didn't see any faces. I can show you the back of my head and show you how any bruises from baton whipping. But
It's not caved in.
yeah.
Okay. Nice.
So Jacksonville Sheriff's Office had said they were going to review the footage and see if there was any disciplinary action to
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
9 minutes ago, ESPN just put out a story. Jacksonville Sheriff's Office says police altercations with fans at Georgia-Florida game were, quote, within policy. So, using handcuffs as brass knuckles and giving somebody the people's elbow.
It was like
Is
7
within
consecutive people. Yeah.
Yeah.
So for the only context I may be able to provide, and this is hearsay, so go do your own research. The brass knuckles handcuffs one, I don't really know as much about. That's pretty hilarious though. But the one where the two guys are just getting the shit kicked out of them, I heard that they were fighting each other, and the police came over, and then one of them may or may not have let his intrusive thoughts win and reach for the service weapon.
No way.
That is maybe what I heard. I don't know if that's true, but something along those lines of the police tried to intervene. Maybe somebody reached for a weapon or, did something to the police officer, and then they just get their asses kicked. So pretty intense. And, maybe that is the reasonable amount of force if that is the case, but pretty crazy videos coming from the stands. Obviously, the drunkest college football game of the season, so people are rowdy. But I've never really seen anything like that at a Georgia-Florida game. So I think it's funny their internal investigation obviously found no wrongdoing outside of their duties. It's just when videos like that surface, just people getting wailed on, it's
You hardly expect
it's pretty crazy to see. Yeah, usually it stands fighting each other.
Yeah.
But no, I mean I think that sums up the Georgia-Florida atmosphere pretty well. It's a bunch of drunk people walking around in the same place talking shit to each other. So
I think that's as good of an explanation as any.
Yeah, for sure. But I think that about does it for everything. I know this was a long one, so if you stuck around on the long form this long, thank you for your viewership and support. It means a lot. And if you're here for the first time and new, please do feel free to subscribe, stick around, like the video. We have college football content all season long, both in these long form videos on YouTube, and then we do a lot on the short form side on YouTube Shorts if that's your preferred method. I know probably not a lot, so but I know we have a lot going on TikTok. That's where it's at. So if you're here from TikTok, it is murdering it. So if you're over here from TikTok, we appreciate you. Come and join the fun over here too. We talk a lot of ball and have fun with it. Let us know in the comments what you're most excited for this upcoming weekend and matchups. What your lock of the week would be. We're gonna have that later on short form, so keep an eye out on that if you want betting takes that may or may not be shitty. We don't have our total records tallied up, so you'll never know. But anyways, we appreciate you sticking around and hanging out, talking ball with us, and we'll see you in the next one.